Hey there, it's Carly with the Expat Focus podcast. Moving abroad often means losing that insider status that you held in your home country. The advantage of just knowing how a system or local industry works, where to find the right tools or resources you need to get something done. Remco recognised this and that his public workshop in Amsterdam could act as an entrance, not just for locals needing somewhere to knock up a coffee table or use specific machinery, but also for expat carpenters, designers, artists and DIY enthusiasts. The Openbare Werkplaats is providing foreigners in Amsterdam with an entry point and community that they may not otherwise find. Remco, you run this public workshop for craftsmanship and DIY. How did it start?
Well, it started with the fact that I grew up myself with all the facilities we offer now at the factory my father once had. So this was a place where the firm would make mainly stuff for musea and storefronts and all those kind of things. Both woodworking and both metalworking stuff, making frames to house artifacts, for example, for museums with wooden bases, glass tops, and all that kind of stuff. And privately, I had a lot of advantage just being there. I worked there part-time. I grew up more or less. I always was there on Saturday. As a private person, I did all kind of stuff, building my own furniture, technical stuff, so metalwork and cars and all that. That's what I did back then. And at one point in time, when this company, which my father had sold already, wasn't going that well, and we both had, it would be ashamed if it would just go away, and we wouldn't have the possibility to do our thing, what we have done for so many years, on a private level. And then we started thinking, maybe we can make what we have here into something public. And that's how more or less it came about.
So you open your doors to the public, and what do people come in and most use your workshop for?
Well, in reality, luckily the company didn't go bankrupt. So what we did is we set up the same sort of facilities in a neighboring building, and it started and just, very much from word of mouth and people just finding us through our website on the internet. And mainly we started simply in Dutch because that's what we came from, of course. We later changed to an English version of our website. What we found out is people, let's say 70% of the people that come into our doors are coming in as a professional. So you must look at people like being designers, architects, artists, furniture makers. Those are the people that are not only visiting here but are working here.
I guess it's quite expensive to set up your own workshop as a designer, as an artist, as a furniture maker. And so having these facilities that you can just come in and use as you need and all of the tools that you need are there, that must be so invaluable for people.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. There were like two main reasons for us to say, hey, we're going to start this, because we were seeing, of course, that being in Amsterdam, everybody lives in a small house, relatively small. If you go out to the countryside, everybody has a big shed or whatever, hey, can do their own thing. And on the other hand, a lot of people, in Holland anyway, are now working for themselves. More like in the old days, people were working for a boss with a big workshop and doing their thing, and more people are working from their own. And you can't just have a complete workshop for a single person. That's just too expensive to hold that up. And that's why we thought, this might be a viable thing for us because of those two things. And in practice, that was true. And also what we saw, and what is a main influx of people for us, is that people come from an education, let's say a woodworking school or an artist school, like the Rietveld here in Amsterdam. They come from a school that's fully equipped with everything that you can find. And then they have to start for themselves, and they have nothing. They don't have the work, so they don't have the money to buy anything from so, and they don't have the place to do it. And that what we see is that we have a lot of, let's say, startups also, that people who try to start working for themselves that come in, and some of them stay here, and some of them just grow bigger, and they leave and start their own workshop or start their own place to work. So that's what we see a lot.
So you're a bit of an incubator for new businesses as well and giving them a bit of a soft landing when they start.
Yeah, that's a very a popular way, or that's something you see a lot. Everything's called incubators and startups, but everybody talks about it, and we just say, hey, we're just going to do it, and that's happened to be like that.
So tell me about some of the projects you can come in and do.
It's a very wide variety because of the variety of people that come in, and also what you can see is that there are private people who come and work here that do nicer things or more intricate things than like professionals that come here. So there's no one way you can say, hey, this is what these people make or this is what those people make. For example, right at this moment, there's a guy who's in here for the first time, and he wanted to make a frame for a picture. And it's quite not so much a complex, but it's not something that a beginner should normally start with, because he's doing inlays from wood into another wood, and it's going to be very nice. But it's the first time around for him, and he's just doing his thing. And when he's not understanding what he has to do, he can come in and ask, and we'll guide you through the process when it's not too complicated. But we have people here making tables out of, or other furniture out of, old sport room floors, for example, because in the old days gym floors used to be from wood, of course, with all the stripes and everything on it, and now those are made into nice pieces of furniture.
Oh, that'd be very nice.
A nicer wood, and we have all the stripes doing all kind of strange things on the top, where all from all the fields and which were on the gym floors. We got a lot of people doing reclaiming things, so getting old pieces of wood or metal and making something new out of it. So upcycling is a very hip and happening thing. But what we get a lot, for example, is people doing woodwork, like, say, carpenters. They, for example, want to make a steel frame for a table, which is very common. But even if you have your own facilities doing woodworking, you don't have your own facilities for making a steel table frame. And that's what we also offer. So we also get a lot of people who have their own workshop and do their own thing, but also come to us to, for example, use the bigger machine that we have compared to what they do or they have at home, or to use facilities that they don't have at home. Making something of steel is a whole different ball game than making something out of wood.
Remco, you mentioned that at the start you just had your website in Dutch. How did you identify that your business could be very useful for expats?
Well, mainly because quite early on we got English carpenters, or English-speaking carpenters, actually one from Australia and one from America, who found us through their boss, who was working in Holland for a longer time. He was from New Zealand, to really make it complicated. But that's the way we thought, well, we know, of course, Amsterdam, there's a growing number of expats working there, and they don't have the entrances as, well, the Dutch people have, and knowing all the places they can go and courses they can get or whatever. And we thought, hey, why not just put an English website out there and see what's happening? And slowly but surely, we have a growing number of foreign people coming here.
On your Facebook page, there's some feedback.
Yeah.
And one person says that your business is more like a clubhouse. You must be really proud to have fostered a bit of a community around this workshop.
Yeah, it's very funny. We had never intended it to be like that. We always intended, of course, to be a nice place to come. Mainly because we started in an old building and now, but nothing fancy and with like the modern workshops. It has very much a look and feel that has a life, has a history, and we try to keep that look and feel. What we certainly are is just plain down to earth. What you see is what you get, and we try to be very nice to everybody. But if somebody comes in and wants something that's impossible or out of his or her league, we'll just say it. And that's not always nice, but in the end, our experience is that's better.
If someone comes in and wants to make an intricate chess table and they've never made a picture frame before, this could be a problem.
Yeah, but depending on how you come in, of course, If you just barge in and say, hey, this is what I'm going to make and it's going to be beautiful, and we find out, well, that you're just like, let's put it bluntly, full of shit, we'll let you know. If you come in and say, I really want to make this, I know it's difficult and I need a lot of, not so much assistance, but I need to learn a lot, we're very much more open to help you along. We're still going to say, hey, it probably will take you like maybe twice, 3 times, 4 times as long as you might think it would take, and that's what we explain almost daily. What people do here is not so much an art, but it's a skill, and it's a skill set you need to have or need to obtain to get something done. And I always say, once you're finished, you know how it's done.
And you do offer some workshops too, don't you, for people looking to do some DIY jobs around the house?
Yeah, we do. Well, we do quite a lot of workshops, but the DIY is one category. Yeah, that's something that came to us, the DIY school in Holland, or in Amsterdam, the do-it-self school, which has existed for a very long time. We were looking for some cooperation with another firm, and they said, hey, well, if you take the practical part of our courses, especially the DIY and woodworking and furniture upholstery, those kind of courses they gave too, we can do a cooperation, and that's how that came to be.
So how does it work? If I'm an expat that's doing a bit of home reno, or I'm an expat carpenter or a builder that doesn't have enough of my own equipment or a workshop, how would I come in and start using your facilities?
Well, for the DIY thing is, of course, mainly if you don't have any experience, because most of the courses are for people who don't have experience, and you can come in and learn the basics. One of the things you learn, not so much, you learn, of course, some basics, but you also learn, hey, where do my skills end? When do I hire a klusjesman, a guy who does the odd jobs around the house for me?
Do you throw up your arms in defeat?
No. The main advantage of following a course like this is that if you don't know anything, it's very easy for somebody to say, hey, this needs to be done and that needs to be, and to rip out your arm financially. And if you have some experience on what you can or cannot do, on how it's done or not, in that way you can say, hey, now you're pulling my leg, let's get back to the basics. This is what I want you to do, and this is what you're going to charge me for it. So that's one part of the story. On the other hand, if you want to work here during the daytime, which most of the courses are given at night, during the daytime it's very simple. If you come in, first time we sit down, we have you sign our house rules. For example, in our house rules are stated that you work here at your own risk. And it has to do with something like you poking somebody else's eye out. So with
cutting off your arm, you know.
No, it's not so much your own arm. That's your own fault. But it's mainly thing if you work next to somebody else and you
for other people,
poke out somebody else's eye out. Once you've signed, you get a T-shirt. And from then on, you can just hire a workbench per half day. Half days are always from 9 till 1 and 1 till 5. A standard workbench is €30 ex VAT, including the use of our stationary machines. So that's table saw, planer, thicknesser, bandsaw, welding equipment, even our lathe and our mill, all those kinds of big machines which normally you wouldn't have at home. And there are some extras depending on what you're doing. For example, if you're using a machine intensively, let's say you're coming with a lot of a big stack of wooden planks which you want to cut or want to plane or something, we charge you like €20 extra per half day for that.
And it's a bit like hogging the photocopier in an office, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, our prices are based on, widely known in English as a fair use.
I can imagine that it would be an excellent networking opportunity, especially for new expats that might be in woodworking, construction, furniture making kind of areas, to make some new connections with locals as well. Yeah,
you can, sure. That's what happens. And of course, the most important facility in our building is the cantina, where all the talking goes on. It happens, certainly, people getting to know other people working for them, or on the other hand, we also get quite often people coming in here saying, hey, I don't want to do things myself. Do you know somebody who can do some work for me? And with like 1,200 people in our register who are inscribed here to work here, most of the time we can find someone who might be able to help those people.
So Remco, if I'm looking for your workshop, where can I find it?
Well, that's not too difficult if you're a bit familiar with Amsterdam. It's in the east of Amsterdam. It's very close to the Zeeburger Dijk, and this is a road that's more or less a road that exits or enters the east of Amsterdam. And we are at the Krukiusweg, and that's a difficult name, and that's spelled as Cruquius, Krukius, some Dutch guy along that. Weg nummer 78. Maybe for some expats who like to wine and dine a bit, we're exactly opposite to the Harbour Club in Amsterdam.
That's it for this episode. If you want to know more about Remco's public workshop or have any questions, head over to expatfocus.com, follow the links to our Netherlands forum or Facebook group. You can also check out our other podcast episodes. We cover all aspects of expat life. If you like what we do, please leave us a review, and I'll catch you next time.